Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tonight Show podcast for today, the 20th of July, live on YouTube. And yes, as you can hear outside my window, there is raindrops, quite a lot of them, in fact, outside. So hopefully tonight, if the thunderstorms do not disrupt the internet connection, we will certainly be providing you with all the news as we go on. I'm your host, Charlie Tolhurst, and joining me after his little holiday away to Wales is my co-host, Zach Chambers. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Charlie. Good to be back. Hello.
Hello, Zach. Now, obviously, since you've been away the last couple of weeks, I've had to pretty much digest a lot of the news stories from Hugh Edwards to many more things. But we're going to start off with the big question. This always now opens our show up. We're going to be talking about the biggest question, obviously, the biggest news story of the week, which is, of course, to do with my bank account being closed. But that is said bank account for Nigel Farage. There was a statement out the other day from a bank, which apparently called, I think, NatWest, had to issue an apology today. The CEO is saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shut Nigel Farage's bank account down over his views." And I think also Clotus, another group, also shut down a bank. And it's been an interesting week if you're the former leader of the Brexit Party, for sure. I mean, Nigel has gone on air speaking out to various media organisations about it as well. We've also seen Jacob Rees-Mogg slam the allegations in Parliament as well today. There's been a lot of debate around this. Obviously, a lot of people condemn NatWest's action. Zach, for purposes of having your bank account being closed for free speech, that's a big issue, isn't it?
It's been a bit of a bizarre way to end the week, quite frankly, as well. Nigel Farage has had a little bit of a battle with Coutts. He's customer for 40 years. His bank account was closed because apparently, from what Coutts claimed originally first, he did not meet the threshold. Now, Nigel Farage has obviously used this little freedom of information, all access little request that they can have a right to do. And it turns out there's a bit more to that than just closing your account because you don't have enough money to open a certain amount of account or something like that, or something else. It turns out that Coutts are not a fan of Nigel Farage politically. There was some interesting stuff that was said behind the scenes at the political sort of like the money committee that they've been discussing as well. There's some stuff said about that Nigel Farage is a xenophobic, racist, and sort of that sort of thing as well. In part of the reason that Farage is a divisive public figure. True in some ways, he is a divisive public figure. As well. The main reason why account closed accounts was not because of values or what the BBC claimed at first, was because the views did not align with the firm's values. Not values for money, but values in terms of political values as well. Now, this whole Coutts versus Nigel Farage versus NatWest sort of thing, because NatWest is, I think, Coutts is part of the NatWest groups in many ways. This whole thing has meant that the Treasury, even senior politicians have got involved. The government, Rishi Sunak, even intervened to say that what Coutts did to Nigel Farage was totally and utterly wrong. And the Treasury now come up with new legislation and regulations to ensure that any banks that shut down an account for political reasons, because they don't like what they're saying or anything like that, is going to get penalised in some way as well, and may even be blacklisted in some ways as well. They face heavy fines or even losing their licenses as well to do things, which would be quite the extreme move. But this is basically a free speech issue in some ways as well. Does Nigel Farage deserve to have a bank account because of the values he holds? Well, he's got to have some money somewhere, doesn't he? I mean, in fairness to him, I don't agree with him a lot, but I have to say on this, he's got a bank somewhere. He got turned down by 10 other banks, according to him. He's got a bank somewhere. He can't live in a piggy hole for all this many times. And plus, as well, he must have been banking with Coutts for many years. So I don't know how if Counts were banning him because of shutting down the account because of political views, then don't seem to quite understand it, because they must know Nigel Farage's political views very, very well. I mean, they've been customers for him for 40 years. I don't know what you can expect as well. The Treasury announces often the banks to force banks to give customers 3 months notice of account closure prior to a full explanation. They also face losing their license if they close accounts because they do not agree with customers' political belief and concerns of free speech. So yeah, I mean, you know.
Oh, sorry guys, we've had some technical issues. I think I don't know what happened there. We are back on air now. Fortunately, looked like there was some technical issues there. With my friend Zach's microphone. I hope everything's okay on there at the moment. We seem to have some technical glitches with Zach's, and I'll continue it whilst we're here at the moment. So among these formers, a Chilean dictator called Augusto Pinochet, who opened an account with US branch accounts with other banks, saying he had a total of 7.8 million across financial institutions. 2005, a US Senator subcommittee found that the dictator was responsible for executions and forced disappearances of more than 3,000 people he had invested with Counts and company in Miami. So the idea of Counts closing Nigel Farage's bank account is actually quite weird, honestly. I think the whole thing is a bit weird, having NatWest close your bank account and then have to have legislation put through. Could this been done sooner? Maybe. That is one of the questions, because obviously, as we know, Nigel Farage has spoken out on the airwaves about this. He's spoken on the news, and also on Talk TV as well today. It's just been so much media coverage around this. This is an important issue, because Jeremy Hunt also lost his bank account as well, the Chancellor and of the Exchequer. So it's very, very important that we understand exactly what is happening with these issues. Now, what I'm going to do, obviously, unfortunately, my co-host at the moment, Zach is coming back on air now. I was just going to say, my friend Zach is having some technical issues at the moment. Zach is back now.
It's like collapsed, but I'm back. Just in my prime as well. I brought the internet from Wales over. Oh well. Yeah, I'm back. I was just I was just pretty much saying as well, Charlie. And to be fairness as well, what I think about this, I think this is do you have a right to? Does Farage have a right to deal with Counts? Yes, of course he does. He's been a customer for over how many years with that bank. I find it a bit weird that he's been shut down because of his views now. I mean, the Counts must have known about 20, 30 years ago. I don't know why he didn't do it then, but he's done more controversial things over the time than just today. So, yeah, I think it's a strange one. I don't think it was a necessary one as well that Counts should have got in a fight with.
Yeah, it's an interesting issue. As I said, this is going to probably be debated when we come back from recess. I don't know, but what can I say? Comment down below what your opinions are on that. Now it's time to talk about the actual news tonight. Now, I'm going to talk about what's happening in Ukraine now, because there was another bridge. The Crimean Bridge got another attack the other day. We don't know who caused it. There's been unknowns on this. Russia and Ukraine are blaming each other for this. Now, what we do know, and this is something that I am going to cover tonight, is the Wagner Group. This is led by a guy who I can't, Sergei Prigozhin, pronouncing his name. I'm not very good with pronunciations for all the listeners out there. But basically, the leader of the Wagner Group has moved to Belarus and he's regrouping his forces. Now, they believe they're going to be training drills just behind where the Polish border is. That borders, I believe, Belarus as well. Now, there are fears going around that the Wagner Group could invade potentially. This is reports at the moment. There are reports going around that Putin is potentially planning on using his Wagner forces to invade a little land corridor, which could potentially trigger NATO's Article 5. There was discussions on The Sun covered this the other day. Zach, what do you make to these developments over in Belarus with the Wagner Group at the moment, and also Putin's war in Ukraine?
First of all, obviously what's clearly happening at the moment is Wagner is making Belarus their home after being kicked out of Russia. After failing to do a coup, they've decided to basically, hustle down in their mate in the mates, backyard, really, Belarus in many ways as well. I found it so interesting over the week, and I was just reading it over last week as well, that we had that extraordinary story in quite bizarre circumstances, that Prigozhin actually met Putin after his attempted coup. I can't believe that. It's just, if you want to look at a weak, sort of president, then your mate next door. I mean, look at the mate next door, Putin, in many ways as well, decided to have a nice cup of tea with Prigozhin, as well, unbelievably, after he nearly got toppled over from government. I mean, just crazy, isn't it? Just a weak leader, and Russians going on the inside whilst the state TV propagates this is just another normal meeting. Nothing to see here, bruv. I don't know what's gone on there, really, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, Wagner making Belarus their little second home now, to be fair, as well. As for this land border stuff as well, and this, Russia trying to take a little bit of land or anything like that as well, that potentially goes into NATO territory. I haven't seen it yet, as well. It's been a busy week, I have to say, for Russia as well. They've not had a good week. The Crimean Bridge was damaged again for the second time. This is not the first time it's happened, because the Crimean Bridge has been damaged before, because the Ukraine struck it, remember, and decided to damage part of the bridge. Well, the same thing has happened this time around another part of the Crimean Bridge, as well. This time it seems to create a little bit of bigger damage, in terms of one part of the bridge being damaged, and it actually killed some people this time. I believe 2 were dead, something like that, as well, which, feel sorry for the innocent citizens, to quite frankly, sorry if they are innocent, which sucks for them, I guess. But this is Ukraine getting, I think, down and dirty and teasing Russia with Crimea again. I mean, they've been claiming Russia's claimed it's Ukraine claimed it's Russia. As far as we know, it looks more to be the Ukrainian side that have done it, given that it's Crimean Bridge. I wouldn't be surprised to see if that was the Ukrainians, to be fair, on that one. It's not a land that they currently hold. It's Russians, to be fair, although it's illegally occupied by Russia. Annexed, shall we say. But they damaged the bridge by the looks of it, as well. In response, Russia has been attacking Odessa. 3 nights in a row that Odessa has been under fire by Russian missiles. I'm afraid some of them have hit other entities, I'm afraid, as well. Now, it's not surprised Odessa is really under attack, to be fair, given the fact that Russia have refused to renew the Black Sea grain deal, which they've been using for so long as well and needed to be. As a way to get grainage and food across from the Black Sea to other countries as well. That's pretty much a response to that. But I guess it's also some ways in response to the bridge attacking, in many ways as well. But yeah, the grain seal deal that has now been expired is not great, to see that it's now expired, because now what it is Russia's going to target Ukrainian vessels for food and stuff like that, and Ukraine's going to target Russia for any ships that go across the Black Sea and into Odessa as well. As vessel reasons, and they might get all damaged. So, in terms of global food security, this is a damaging step by the Russians to pull out the agreement that Turkey and Ukraine actually really did work for, to get some food over the Black Sea in many ways as well. So this is dangerous stuff, and as you can see there, there's been a lot of them happening in Ukraine, with Odessa being caught set on fire, as well by various of Russian missiles. Odessa, like I said, has been the one targeted because of the association with the ports, the grainage arrivals, as well, and the food stuff as well. So it's a big issue in terms of global security across the world. It goes around as shown as well. as well. The US has also confirmed today as well that cluster bombs that they have provided the US, and this is very controversial, by the way. I know this happened whilst I was away, but this is very controversial because it's banned across many other countries, but the US decided to hand it over as well. They have been used by Ukraine against Russia on the battlefield. The US have found intelligence actually as well. They have been used across various areas as well. And yeah, so there's a lot of activity going on in Russia and Ukraine at the moment as well. People getting killed because of in bombings of port cities. As well, Wagner continue to train their forces in Belarus as well. A much further tougher sanction by the EU on Russia as well. Wheat prices increasing because of the grain deal expiring as well. In many ways as well. So yeah, I think in many ways as well, it's been an eventful week. And take a look at this, Charlie, as well. I just read this as well. This is a wild claim by Lord Singh as well, who claimed that that he suggested the idea that if Russia withdraws from Ukraine, they should be offered NATO membership. Russian NATO membership? I don't think they would take it with a barge pole, if you ask me. But that's what one peer in the House of Lords suggested today. I mean, I don't know what's going through their crazy head, Charlie. But the last thing we need is NATO bombing out NATO countries. The last thing we need. Weird.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting decision by someone from the House of Lords to, I don't know, the debate on House of Lords is getting interesting, but on Ukraine, I want to say, yeah, it's again, Russia's still going at it with a war, both sides still continuously fighting, and it's showing no signs of ending. One thing I did want to mention was President Putin is getting very desperate now, because obviously he's just pulled out of a summit in Turkey. He was meant to attend that, obviously. He's got that ICC arrest warrant that he's been issued for a long time for war crimes committed on children, from what we understand. Because South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has also been speaking. But, Zach, I want to ask you this question. Putin was talking the other day to his population about basically deploying pensioners as conscripts to fight in his war.
What? I mean, what are the old grannies going to do? Just get their walking stick and use it as a weapon? Yow, yow, yow. I mean, they'll barely able to fight. Pensioners as conscribers, they'll be able to even, you imagine the old grannies trying to walk through the field, or you use an aeroplane, for example. How are they even going to bloody do that? Are they trying to chop the old deer's legs off, for Christ's sake? It's not even going to work. I mean, if you want to die of old age or in mobility, then that's a good way to do it. But my goodness me, old pensioners as prescribers, I can't imagine. They'll be useless as an old walking stick. Honestly, you get 2 meters and then you stop, and then you never take part again. And if you didn't do it, you'd probably get shot by the Russians anyway, because that's what they do. They probably do that sort of dad things anyway. But crazy world that we live in suggests that pensioners should be going around and going for prescribers for the Russian army. My God, poor souls.
It's very interesting. I don't know what to say on that issue. It's very, very weird, But I'm going to play for you a quick little video now of exactly Putin's response to this incident, as he responds after the Crimean bridge attack, and he plans and threatens to use cluster bombs in Ukraine. Have a listen to this.
When Vladimir Putin does an interview on state-run media, he knows his thoughts and pronouncements will go unchallenged, which may be why he told a TV reporter that the Russian army hasn't used cluster munitions in Ukraine.
В Российской Федерации достаточный запас различных.
In the Russian Federation, we have enough reserves of different types of cluster bombs. Different types, but we haven't used them so far. We haven't had the need to do this, even though we had a shortage of ammunition.
The Russian president knows these weapons are controversial, and he seemed to take a principled view before threatening to use them on the Ukrainians if they strike first.
Мы этого не делаем.
We've never used them. But of course, if they use them against us, we have every right to mirror their actions.
There's a problem with Putin's viewpoint. The Russians have been using cluster munitions since the beginning of the war, like Kharkiv, the country's second largest city. Civil rights group Human Rights Watch says the Russians dropped cluster bomblets on at least 3 residential districts at the beginning of the war. Then there's Kramatorsk, where 2 missiles fitted with cluster bombs were dropped on and near the railway station. 63 people were killed. Russia said the Ukrainians fired on themselves.
Russia was using all types of weapons they have. Every type of weapon Russia has, they have already used. They use thermobaric weapons, phosphorus bombs, cluster munition. So everything except for the tactical nuclear weapons, which Russia uses as a bargaining chip. What retaliation could they do? They have already did the most awful and terrible things they can.
Putin may be stirring the pot after US President Joe Biden agreed to supply cluster bombs to the Ukrainians. Biden said they were running out of ammunition. That decision caused much discomfort. The UK and many other countries have signed a treaty banning their use. Cluster weapons kill indiscriminately, and unexploded bomblets can linger for years. There's another way to understand this, however. It's all about public opinion. Putin is trying to court it at home when he says that Russia is trying to defend itself. But the viewpoint here in Ukraine is different. Most people support the use of cluster weapons if it drives the Russians out. The Russian leader was also sounding bullish about the war. He pronounced the Ukrainian counteroffensive a failure, in the knowledge that no one was likely to object. John Sparks, Sky News in eastern Ukraine.
Thank you there to John Sparks from Sky News for that report there on the war in Ukraine regarding cluster bombs. Now, moving on now to the UK news now. We're going to talk, obviously, Parliament is now on recess for the summer period. Obviously, school holidays are going to be starting next week. So all I can say is we've not really got much news to talk about from Parliament. What we do need to talk about, though, is there are at least 3 by-elections coming up this week. I think today, actually, we have by-elections.
Tonight.
There is going to be, I believe, a by-election in Boris Johnson's home constituency, from what I read up as well. Lawrence Fox from Reclaim is standing along with quite a few other MPs and serving politicians. Zach, this is an important night for all the parties, especially for the Conservatives, who look on course to potentially lose some seats.
Yes, it's the first time we've had 3 by-elections in the same night for quite a while. Let me tell you what the seats are up for grabs, as you mentioned there. Uxbridge and South Ruislip. That's going to be the main one to watch tonight, I think. The other one to watch for is Selby, and I think the other one as well is Tivington and Horn. I think it was the other. Oh, actually, was it Fruit? I think it's something like that as well. I think I got the right one as well. Something like that. Yeah. So the Lib Dems are fighting the ones that I've just said as well for the seat tonight as well. Somerton and Frome. Sorry, I do apologise. It's Somerton and Frome. I do apologise. Not to say Tiverton and Horton. It's Somerton and Frome. The other by-election there is. Somerton and Frome. Let's just tell you the circumstances of each one. Somerton and Frome used to be held as well by the MP David Warburton. Unfortunately, he resigned because it turns out he'd been there's some allegations involving harassment. He got suspended. He got suspended, and then on the 17th of June announced his resignation as an MP there. So Somerton and Frome is the one of the by-elections tonight taking place. Now, the Lib Dems are favoured for this seat. There is a Conservative majority, about 20,000 at this seat as well. He had a majority of over 19,000, David Warburton, a Conservative majority. It was a 19,000 Conservative majority. As we've seen passing by-elections as well, it will be lower turnout. But what we find out is you in by-elections, you have a lot of Conservative voters that have been very conservative for a long while, but have lost trust in the Conservative, switching over to Liberal Democrats. We're going to see likelihood a lot of that tonight, even enough, I think, for Lib Dems to win that seat. It looks like from what the party are briefing, it's looking good. That it's looking very likely they're going to win that seat as well tonight. So that would be a Conservative loss there, I think, in Somerton and Frome. And the candidate, the Lib Dems candidate, Sarah Dyke, as well. She used to be a farmer as well, used to work on the farms and everything as well. It was really important as well. And I think that's good for Lib Dems. I mean, it's from a rural background as well, pretty much. But 19,000 is very easy to overturn as well. Let me talk about the next one. I want to talk about as well, Selby. That has been the seat that's been held by Nigel Adams. Now, he resigned in protest of Boris Johnson not giving him a peerage, but the fact that Rishi Sunak did not give Nigel Adams a peerage as well, and in protest of Boris Johnson. So he resigned as well. That area as well, if we go through the history of in the 2019 election, the district of Selby, the Conservatives won this seat by, I think, if I'm correct in saying as well, they won this seat by 20,000. It's looking close. The Labour candidate is Keir Mather there. The Conservative candidate is Claire Holmes. It's looking good for Labour in Selby. And they'll be interesting. Now, I'll tell you why this is where we are. They're probably going to this is the most likely seat to win tonight, despite the fact of Uxbridge and South Ruislip. And going on to Uxbridge and South Ruislip, that is Boris Johnson's old seat. And we obviously know that by now. He resigned in complete disgrace and disarray as well. That seat is going to be very interesting, Uxbridge and South Ruislip, because Labour are the favourites for it. But what will be interesting tonight, and I think very, very interesting tonight, Charlie, is if you, in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, if Labour win that seat, despite the fact that Uxbridge and Ruislip has a smaller majority for Labour to overturn, they may not win in Uxbridge and South Ruislip as much as Selby. And the reason for that is because Uxbridge, there is a big ULEZ issue. The ULEZ issue is one of the main issues in this election because ULEZ is expanding into this area as well in the London area, because Sadiq Khan has decided to extend the ULEZ zone, wants to extend the ULEZ zone to all areas in October this year to all the outer areas of London within his powers of London Borough, basically. There's also dissatisfaction on the doorstep about this ULEZ expansion as well, and it's picking up in the last few days, I have to say as well, reading the sources.
Even Jeremy
still
Corbyn.
favourites for that. Yeah, so even that as well. But Labour are still favourites to the Uxbridge and South Ruislip seat, and they're probably going to win it. But they may only win it by a small majority compared to Selby, where that problem doesn't exist, even though that's more of a 0-1 to overturn. So watch that seat especially. But I have to say, looking at what potentially could be history here, the Conservatives could lose all 3 by-elections tonight. The seats that they've held, one in the Southern Heartlands, 2 in the Southern Heartlands, all 3 are in the Southern Heartlands in many ways as well. Uxbridge, South Ruislip, obviously as well, Somerton, Frome, and Selby as well. All areas that could really spell trouble for the Conservatives in many ways as well. These are seats they should not normally be losing, and yet they could be losing this in the by-election tonight as well. It will be very interesting to see the results. I personally think Labour will win both the seats they're contesting in Uxbridge and in Selby. I think definitely Lib Dems will win in as well in Somerton and Frome. I think that's very likely, but nevertheless, it looks like it's going to be a horrible night for Rishi Sunak as well. Expectation managers are playing a little bit in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. That might be a little bit tighter than what we're thinking, but nevertheless, I do think it'll be Labour, and Lib Dems gaining seats tonight. But who knows? I could be wrong. We might be finding out. It could be all Conservatives gaining to retain all 3 seats, would be a success for them. Gaining keeping one of them at least, or losing all 3. Who knows? We'll have to find out.
Yeah, and also if you're voting tonight, there's new ID rules in place. Make sure you bring your ID to vote at the polling station. They shut at 10 o'clock. So you've got about 20 minutes if you're out around those constituencies to cast your ballots in those by-elections that are taking place at the moment. Now, before we move on to sport news, I just want to go over one bonus story tonight. And we're going to talk again now about the climate loonies Just Stop Oil, who have once again been causing disruption. And in fact, the public have now actually decided to turn on them. Unfortunately, there were some harrowing scenes the other day where Just Stop Oil protester actually got assaulted in London. A member of the public actually attempted to punch and kick a Just Stop Oil protester. But as you know, these climate idiots have been going around blocking London roads, and apparently the other day spray painting a net zero building. And I can't believe that this is still going on. That they've been out, and also I was covering last week. They've been doing mums marches, mums walks, and basically they're what they call infamous slow walks through London, where the drivers have been trying to drive around on the pavement to get past them. I mean, Zach, talk about disrupting everyday people. This is certainly not helping Just Stop Oil's cause, isn't it, in promoting climate change?
You know what? Right, okay. I think it's just, you know, it's embarrassing to see some of the events that have been disrupted in many ways over the week. Wimbledon, for example, 2 idiots going around on the court, deciding to protest as well, using confetti as a way to protest. What's your point? It's a tennis event. I mean, okay, there's a sponsor potentially that's you know, sponsoring Wimbledon with an oil company that pollutes the planet in any ways as well. Might be the only relevance about it, but nevertheless, what you're protesting is actually a tennis event, which probably pollutes nothing. A pair of balls going around flying about, nothing at all. And there was 2 completely embarrassing idiots on there, all at separate times. One came on court, I think, in the early afternoon. One came on court later afternoon to protest. Just dumb, stupid stuff. And then we had another protester deciding to protest, throw confetti at George Osborne's wedding as well. Why? I mean, you know, you can hate George Osborne for all the stuff that he's done over the years, such as austerity and everything like that, the cruel conservative policy that you could ever imagine. But throwing confetti, I mean, yeah, it's used in weddings, fine, I don't mind that. But unauthorized throwing of confettis at George Osborne for no reason, just disrupting his wedding. I mean, it's just sad. I mean, yes, okay, George Osborne probably publicised the fact he was going to have a wedding. So probably just Stop All idiots knew where he was going, and then then decided to go around and invade that area and to put confetti over. But I just think it's so sad and everything as well. And today we've seen Just Stop Oil continue to protest in London, blocking roads again, and protesters getting kicked in the face. Now I have to say I don't condemn that. I think it's horrible, pretty cool. I know how it feels. But kicking people in the head and injuring people because they're protesting is just simply unacceptable. And I'm sorry, there's other ways to show your grievances at protesters, but kicking them in the head and injuring someone is not the way to do it. I mean, yeah, okay, they're in the middle of the road, they're at risk of being injured as well. But don't make a mockery of that and whilst doing it to yourself. And today's images featured a counter protest. From the anti-Just Stop Oilers. They decided to use Just Stop Oil tactics to block them in, pretty much, as well. What a sight to see. Experience. What a sight to see. I mean, a very peaceful counter-protest by a peaceful protest. It'll be very interesting. I think there's some fierce competition to see which is the best protester. I just hope it doesn't turn violent, to be fair. Because I don't mind counter-protests like that. I think that was nicely executed in terms of actual performance. In terms of that, are obviously more of that than more kicking people in the faces, to be honest.
Now, I will say this, guys. The group were, I think, excuse my language here, the group was called, I believe, Just Stop Pissing You Off or something, if I'm correct. Honestly, so I apologise for swearing tonight. I bet Ofcom are going to censor me for that
No,
now.
we're
But
not regulated.
just going to say that it's quite ironic to see protesters going around and trying to block roads and cause disruption. We've had this for years and years, and when you talk about saving the planet, I mean, come on, I don't know. Comment down below, guys, what you've made to Just Stop Oil over the last few weeks. Can we have climate? Are they going to go out again, maybe say tomorrow and the school holidays? And Eddie Whittingham's going to invade another sporting event. Oh, by the way, a few weeks' time, the Premier League's back on. So be aware if football matches get disrupted again. Or if you're flying out to Australia and New Zealand, which we'll cover in a minute, please do not invade the Women's World Cup. Thank you.
Oh, please, God, no.
That's all I'm going to say on that. So that's all the main news done for tonight now at the moment. I'm now going to go over to the sports news now. Quite a lot to talk about. We are going to start off, though, tonight with the Formula One action. Now, as you can tell, yes, we're in our F1 kits tonight. I'm certainly buzzing for Formula One this weekend, as I'm sure Zach is. Now, obviously, the last race took place with Max Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen won again. Unfortunately, Lando Norris, feel sorry for him. Could have potentially won the race, but then after 5 laps, he gets overtaken by a Red Bull. But yes, obviously, it was, as I said, I reviewed the race last week. Zach, obviously, what did you take away from the British Grand Prix, and what are the drivers expecting this weekend when we head to the much tighter Hungaroring?
Yeah, I did see the race, by the way. I managed to catch up, unfortunately, on Channel 4, not Sky, but still saw it. It's kind of it was a right race, I have to say, as well. I mean, Max Verstappen driving off the distance is probably not probably the last surprising thing you expect, really, because that's Max Verstappen this season. Fair play to Lando Norris. I mean, what a bloody good job he did this weekend. Nearly got the pole on Saturday. Led 5 laps on Sunday. I mean, that's an achievement itself. And then only thing that really let him down, I think, was the fact that McLaren chose the wrong strategy on him as well, which was a shame. They went for new hard rather than new soft, which Max Verstappen drove from the distance, because the fact is that the soft tires were warmed up already, and they could easily get Max off in the bounce as well. And then that put obviously Lando in pressure from Lewis Hamilton as well. Lewis Hamilton had a great race, by the way. I mean, Mercedes has not been that brilliant in qualifying, but the race pace has been very good for Mercedes recently. I mean, 3rd position for Lewis Hamilton has been excellent. It's an excellent, well-driven drive. 2 Brits on the podium made up for that as well. It was a really good drive as well. We're looking ahead to this week in Hungary. It's probably they call it the Monaco without the walls. A tight, narrow, twisty sort of actual circuit without walls. As well. Red Bull have bought upgrades this weekend, and they bought a new cooling system with them. Whether how that much, and they bought new upgrades to the front wing and everything like that. Whether they make it faster or not, the car, who knows? I mean, this is a track that's favoured Red Bull in many years as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see them favoured this weekend as well. I mean, Red Bull favourite every week is pretty much, at this point onwards. But yeah, one of the big things that you may have seen over the summer break, and as well, that silly season continued. No more Nick de Vries in the AlphaTauri, Charlie. That has gone. He's been kicked out after only a certain amount of races. Helmut Marko decides to pull the plug on him. I mean, yeah, he was pretty poor. Was it harsh? Possibly, I feel for him. The good news is, although we lost Nick de Vries, we get Daniel Ricciardo back, which is absolutely amazing. I'm so pleased to see Daniel Ricciardo back this weekend, I have to say, from my perspective. He's a fan favourite, and I think he's going to drive the AlphaTauri really well. I don't think he'll get a Red Bull seat next year, or maybe for a few years yet, at least. But this is a chance to show that actually his driving mojo has returned, and he's able to race that car against Yuki Tsunoda, who's become a bit more competitive this season as well. AlphaTauri really needs to start getting points, because they've been like second, third to last in the standings this year. It's not acceptable for them. So they really need to start getting points as well. But yeah, the other thing that's been debated as well this weekend, in some ways, has there been budget cap breaches again. There were rumours going around that 2-3 teams may have breached the budget cap last year. The FIA released a statement denying that as well. We'll have to see. The budget cap has become the talk again across the weekend. I do hope, for God's sake, that the budget cap has not been broken. So we're going to be talking about what penalties they should get and what they shouldn't really. If they broke the budget cap, harsh penalties should be applied, really. Let's be honest about that. Now, if I have to deny this for now, we'll have to see whether that is true. But hopefully, we'll just hear about the budget cap later this season, whether teams have actually kept with it and whether they have, or whether they've not broken it or not as well. But Hungary this weekend as well. Mixed conditions looking ahead of this weekend as well. There's definitely some stuff to talk about as we go into the Hungarian Grand Prix.
And the race after as well. I just wanted to say, guys, obviously the next race after that, Spa, and I a couple of weeks ago on my show, I addressed obviously the horrible news of Diliano Van Tichhoff, who sadly passed away after a horrifying accident during the Formula Regional Europe race in very wet conditions. I mean, Zach, obviously that moment for motor racing was very, very dark. And honestly, the crash reminded me a lot of the Formula 2 feature race in 2019 when we lost Antoine Hubert at the very same corner, pretty much. Just a bit further behind where that crash happened.
And I have seen some debate about this on social media saying, is it Spa? Is it the cars? Anything like that as well? I think from the perspective from my point of view as well, those kids that was racing in those conditions shouldn't be racing in those conditions. It was too wet. Nobody could see a bloody thing. And yet it's become a consistent problem for Spa that once it's obviously because there's a bit of elevation on the circuit as well. Once you're in the dark clouds and everything like that and the gloomy clouds, you can't see a thing. And if it's raining, nothing can be seen at all. So that's one issue, that they shouldn't be racing in wet conditions like that. The second issue was, is it the track or is it the car? Or is it the drivers? Is it the corner that's caused the problem? I think we know that Eau Rouge and Rajon is, very fast by standards, and it's very risky. There's been many accidents over the years in that corner as well. Some have been fatal, some have been quite severe. I think in my view for this one, I don't think the corner caused the accident. I think it was the conditions that the FIA allowed the drivers to go in, and the fact that driver that was killed was hit on driver's side hit directly from the side. I think it was the car that caused the accident, not the corner. And it was just an unfortunate hit that caused devastating impacts for everyone involved. And I have to say, my thoughts very much with the driver after the accident. That was a very horrible T-bone.
18 as well.
18, it's a devastating age to be even losing your life. You're dreaming to get into Formula 1 at this age, not to be dead on the floor in a motor car. It really is sad stuff to watch. And I feel for him and everyone involved in that industry.
Just want to say as well, Max Verstappen got into Formula 1 at 17 years old, would you believe it? When he drove throughout Toro Rosso, and then a year later he went to Red Bull, got his first win on his debut in Spain. So think about how that could have been for him. He could have been in Formula 2. He could have been going up through the junior formulas. But unfortunately, as I said a couple of weeks ago, it was an unfortunate event. And I agree with you, Zach. I think the race should never have been restarted. Honestly, they haven't learnt their lesson clearly, the FIA, and I think really there's going to have to be a lot of investigations. And I'm not going to be rude, I will boycott the race this year. I don't want to ever boycott the Belgian Grand Prix, but if it rains, I will boycott the race. I'm not a big... I want Spa to be a safe circuit, but I really think there's going to have to be a lot of safety changes coming, certainly to the cars or the track, the weather, particularly weather conditions. As Damon Hill said, learning about racing in wet conditions might have to change. So comment down below, guys, what you think about obviously the upcoming Belgian Grand Prix and also this weekend's race in Hungary as well. Moving on now to the NASCAR Cup Series race. Now, I watched this race just before we went on air, and Martin Truex Jr. claims a very crucial win. Now, there was plenty of action throughout the race. Several drivers hit the wall in New Hampshire, including obviously Kyle Busch. Aric Almirola had a puncture. I mean, Zach, this Cup Series race at New Hampshire, the Crayon 301, certainly had lots of action and many drivers suffering with tyre blowouts.
Yeah, I haven't been able to catch it up with myself, unfortunately, but I know I have seen the results, to be fair, on this one as well. as I understand, it was quite an eventful race from what I understand. As well, lots of little different incidents as well. Lots of a couple of DNFs. Kyle Busch is one of the main ones that got knocked out early. Very bad news to him. Cole Custer was another one that got DNF'd. Eric Kalmark also got rolled in an incident. Coiler Joyce also got rolled in an incident, but he also kept running. Noah Gregson as well, all DNF'd in that one. Very sad for him. But it was Martin Truex Jr. that took a crucial victory in that one as well. And that was a very good result for him. Joe Logano, as you can see, was second there. Kyle Larson was third. Kevin Harvick was fourth. Brad Keselowski fifth. Tyler Reddick sixth. Hamlin sixth. Bubba Wallace Denny Hamlin seventh. Sorry, Bubba Wallace eighth. Austin Dillon ninth, and Chase Briscoe was 10th in that one as well. In terms of, obviously, we're getting to the stage now. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. So I just want to go through the standings here actually as well, and talked about what's happening as well. Now, at the moment, the top 16 are Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Joe Logano, Tyler Reddick, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. All of them have won races this season so far. So that means they get automatic playoff positions at the moment. They're drivers that won races as well. They have won races. It means they automatically get playoff points as well. So 12 of the winners, the top 12, the 12 of the drivers in the top 16 have won races this year. We know that there are still quite a few races until we get to the actual playoffs at the moment as well. In many ways. So, if you put a simple point, if you win, you get a playoff spot as long as you finish in the top 30 as well. That doesn't include Shane Van Gisbergen. He won a race, obviously, you know, that road course at Chicago.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely stunning stuff to see an Aussie won on their first appearance. Shame I missed that because that was absolutely incredible. A bit of NASCAR history there. Shane Van Gisbergen, despite the fact he won a race, he's not going to go on to the playoff because he's not a full-time driver. End of story, unfortunately, on that one. But there are still 5 drivers in the playoff in the top 16 at the moment on points. They are Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, and Michael McDowell. At the moment, they are on in the playoffs based on points. They can if nobody else wins, if the top 12, like I said, 11 and 12 continue to win, and the rest don't, then it will go to points. And on points alone, Harvick, Keselowski, Buescher, Bubba Wallace, and Michael McDowell will go in to the playoff via points. But if others outside that top 30, within the top 30, others outside that playoff positions win, then they're going through. There's several names I noticed that aren't in there at the moment. Chase Elliott is one of them that's not in there at the moment. Alex Bowman not in there. Daniel Suarez not in there at the moment as well. But very interesting to see big names not in there at the moment, especially Chase Elliott as well. Obviously, he's been off a little bit this season with injuries, but still could be winning. If he wins, can get a playoff spot as well by the time we get to September. So, yeah, still lots to play for. And this weekend, the NASCAR Cup Series is at Pocono. As well. So is the Xfinity Series, the Pocono 400 as well, the Pocono 225 as well. And I believe as well, the truck series is all there. All 3 main series are there at Pocono this weekend on the big oval that is Pocono. Fascinating races are coming up as well. And it's all going to be making sure at this stage it's getting to the playoffs that matter for most of the drivers involved.
And sports news doesn't get any bigger because obviously Formula E's back next weekend for the season finale in London as well. And obviously the football. Zach, what did you make, obviously, quickly, just before we move on to the ladies' football, to the Formula E race?
Yeah, first of all, I want to mention race 1 because there was a very severe accident in race 1. I think 6 drivers got involved in that. I mean, it was probably one of the worst crashes I've seen.
Yeah, it was horrible. I watched the accident as well.
Yeah, it was, you know, incredibly bad to watch and pretty scary because at that corner you can see as well, drivers are coming up at 150, 160 miles an hour and at the corner. And if you spin, it's so narrow that you can't see around the bend.
Mm.
And the problem that you have with that is that, you know, if you can't see around the bend, you're likely to crash. Sam Bird spun. No one else could see him behind him, and they collected several others as well. I mean, some of them took really nasty hits into the wall, I have to say, as well. There was 6 of them involved.
Buemi, Mortara, several of them.
Yeah, and it was a nasty pile-up. Race was red flagged. Thankfully, all drivers okay. And the miracle thing about it is they were all able to repair their cars for the following race on from the Sunday as well, which is great to see. All the engineers managed to repair all their cars despite the fact of the incident as well, on what happened as well. It was, you know, shocking incident, but I'm glad to see everyone all right as well, in that terms as well. And I have to say, I'm pleased. Yeah, like I said, pleased to see everyone involved in that as well. Right, let me talk about what happened on race 2. Jake Dennis, massive victory, pole position, fastest. You know, I think he got the fastest lap as well. In many ways, what's a job by Jake Dennis? A totally dominant performance, and it means so much as well because it has so much implications in terms of the constructor of the championship standings as well as we go into the last 2 races of the season in London. This coming up as well, which is not this weekend, but the following weekend as well in London. Jake Dennis, if you go to the point standings as well, and let me just get the standings up as well. I had it somewhere. Here we go. Jake Dennis has a 24-point lead. He only really needs to get pole position and at least get a point in the first race to take the title. That would be very interesting to see as well. But Jake Dennis, all he needs is a pole position. Actually, he only really needs a pole position, and then he won the title. And yeah, actually, that is it. You can win the title by a pole position. It'll be quite the thing to see. And then as long as he keeps it clean as well, and wins and finishes at least 10th, as well, then he wins the title. He can win. He can win it that way as well. Then he won't have to go to a second race. But Nick Cassidy is the one that's closest to Jake Dennis, but he's still 24 points behind. This title is Jake Dennis's one to lose at the moment, and he could wrap it up after race 1 as well. But that's in a week's time, and it could all be done and dusted. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to London. It's a home race, and it's the final 2 races of the season as well. It's a double header next weekend on the Saturday and Sunday, and it's also in prime. It's also in the late afternoon as well. So good viewing if you want to watch that as well.
Yeah. And obviously, sorry to Mitch Evans, he went from hero to zero because he then crashed in race 2. So, yeah, certainly chaotic Formula E race as well. But moving on now to the Women's World Cup that is taking place out in Australia right now. Just a quick little roundup. Australia, New Zealand. We have had some results, very early kickoffs, obviously, because of the time zone differences. I believe England are playing at the weekend in the Ladies World Cup. We don't really follow ladies football that much. I certainly don't. I'm mainly in the men's football. But we obviously the ladies is the sport that's currently on at the moment. We did have some results. Only a couple of matches played so far. New Zealand and Australia, the host, playing both 1-0 wins. New Zealand beating Norway. Australia beat Republic of Ireland 1-0. And tomorrow morning we'll see Nigeria and Canada play. Philippines play Switzerland. Spain play Costa Rica. England's first match will be taking place, I believe, if I can get the matches.
Haiti
is the first match. Zach, what do you make so far to the football results from the Women's World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see the Women's World Cup take place today as well. I mean, you know, this is actually the biggest selling Women's World Cup despite the fact it hasn't even reached capacity. So that's good on the organisers. The fact that they've managed to get sold out a lot of tickets for this, and it shows the women's game has really grown on this. I think we had the first shock result today. New Zealand was the underdog for this one. And they won against Norway, a team that's been quite good in the past. But they actually lost. Norway lost 1-0 actually today, and a very surprising result as well. And I have to say it was really, really surprising in many ways as well. But yeah, Norway managed to lose the match against New Zealand as well. But I have to say, it's again, like I said, Chuck, it's a very surprising result as well. The Republic of Ireland, which is the closest we can get to a second home nation, in many ways as well. Their match was also today at 11 o'clock. They lost against other host nations, Australia as well, 1-0. It was, it was Sam Catterley that scored the goal as well. Steph Catterley's goal penalty that won Australia in the match against Republic of Ireland. Like you said, tomorrow, Charlie, is Nigeria, Canada in the early mornings. At the Gripol time of 3:30, Philippines and Switzerland at 6, and Spain and Costa Rica is the other match taking place at 8:30 as well. And like you said, England are in action this Saturday at 10:30. Their first match is against Haiti. I think it should be an easy one for us. I think hopefully breathe through the group stage and win the match against Haiti, all that sort of thing as well. The other matches include the United States and Vietnam, Zambia and Japan, and Denmark and Chelsea as well. And also on the Sunday, it's Sweden, South Africa, Netherlands, Portugal, France, Jamaica as well. All big matches, I think, that day as well. Probably one of the biggest ones of the weekend so far. But yeah, Women's World Cup is back in action, and again, it's a festival of a couple of weeks of action. I'm showing case in the women's game as well. I'm really pleased to see the women's game being showcased as well on that one. But in terms of obviously you can how to see it on Saturday, the live match will be on ITV for everyone to see at 10:30 as well. If you want to watch England on that game.
Yeah, that's all the football news. Well, you can keep up with the men's football news. That's all through on sports news there as well. Now, we're going to go to the conversation street, and we're going to stay with sports tonight, guys, because I want to bring in the darts onto my show. A lot of you guys know that darts, I tend to cover the World Championship on my show, but we're going to cover, I think, what's happening amongst the World Match Play taking place because there's been some big shots. I've watched the matches. I've watched at least one match as well, and we have had some shocks in the Betfred World Match Play because Michael van Gerwen was knocked out the other day by Brendan Dolan in the first round, defending champion out, and there's also been more shocks in the event as well. Oh dear, if your name is Peter Wright, you also got knocked out as well. Oh no. I can say the top seeds, and Gerwyn Price also got knocked out. I mean, goodness me, talk about having the top seeds knocked out. The other day, Peter Wright knocked out, Dimitri van den Berg's been exited, Luke Humphries goes. I mean, Zach, to be honest with you, the last results have been, well, quite a shock really for some of the top seeds.
I mean, some of the stuff as well. Peter Wright, Dimitri van den Berg, all being exited as well. The top 5 seeds in the PDC are not in the World Match Play latter stage as well. That is so surprising as well. It's just so surprising. It just shows the talent on competition as well that's been going on. It's really, I have to say, really surprising. But it's quite something to see as well. Let me tell you about some of the quarterfinal results tonight so far. Joe Cullen has beaten Dal Gurney 16-11 as well. That's been a tight one. I mean, Joe Cullen ran away with it pretty much in the early stages, and Dal Gurney did do a little bit of a catch up early on, but wasn't able to there. Next up is Chris Dobie and Nathan Aspinall after this one as well. And then on Friday, the other 2 quarterfinals, Ryan Seal, Johnny Clayton, Damon Hayter, and Luke Humphries. Names you wouldn't expect to get this far, but have really got far. And actually, it started raining where I am, actually. I know you were talking about rain earlier on the show. So starting to talk rain where I am. Interesting enough, it's pouring down. I can hear it from my window. But yeah, Ryan Seal and Johnny Damon Hayter, certainly not names that you expect to get this far at the moment, but they could be in the semi-finals come Saturday night of the World Match Play Championship. It's really great to see all these rising stars in the PDC, get this far and show themselves on the world stage. It really is good.
You got to say that as well. But even Bully Boy, if the world champion got knocked out, I was like, oh my God, where are all the top seeds going? What's happening? Are they not averaging 180s? Oh, when you look at the draw, like, you see Joe Cullen, Daryl Gurney. Daryl Gurney's an underdog. Luke Humphreys remains, in my opinion, as the only top seed left who can actually challenge. Maybe Johnny Clayton as well, another Welsh player, very closely aligned with Gerwyn Price. It's going to be very interesting to see whether they can go far now, given that Michael van Gerwen's out. Brendan Dolan played really well in that first match. Unfortunately, he couldn't quite replicate that in his second match. So it's a big competition. Tune into Sky Sports Darts for all the latest live action. I believe, I'm not sure currently at the moment, I think it's Chris Dovey and Nathan Aspinall playing. So we'll keep you updated with that match. But I'm sure, yeah, big result there for all of the top seeds going out. I mean, wow, what a moment for darts fans. Pretty sure that will happen. So that's all of that darts action now that I'm just going to uncover quickly. Finally on the show tonight, I just want to address something very quickly. Obviously, the summer holidays are starting for most school kids pretty much. Some have started already, some have started now. I just want to say very quickly to you guys as well that for us news for Parliament, obviously, there won't be much political news, obviously, from Parliament over the next few weeks in now, and obviously throughout the summer period. So we're going to try and do some like fun-filled summer segments on my show, talk about holidays, talk about travel and that. I just want to say to you guys quickly that I will still be doing my show next week, even though I am off to Devon. So I will let you guys obviously know about showtime schedules and that kind of stuff. I just wanted to say quickly as well, I want to talk a lot about obviously music as well, because obviously last week we had a lot of cancellations with Goodwood, with music, stuff like that. Was that obviously, what did you take away from like last week? I'm just covering quickly as well, Festival Speed. There was lots of demonstration runs, obviously at Goodwood as well. What was your highlight from that?
Sebastian Vettel being there was certainly the highlight. I think many people were really excited to see Seb Vettel return. And yeah, I mean, it showed in the enthusiasm and the passion as well. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of passion. I have to say as well. Now, obviously, the Saturday they had to call it off because of the high winds, which was unfortunate. It never happened before in Goodwood Festival Speed. But we did get 3 other days of spectacular action. We got we had the likes of Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris there. There were lots of F1 drivers that are currently there. Alex Albon was there as well. I think there was like the likes of Button doing demonstrations as well. I mean, lots of good big figures doing demonstrations, speed runs, and everything like that as well. It looked like a fantastic weekend, you have to say, Charlie. No doubt about it as well. And the summer, as you know, the summer vibes are really there for the days that were dry and really, you know, it really felt like a proper motorsporting day as well. Funny enough, I think Wales actually. When I was on holiday in Wales, I passed something called the Museum of Speed. That's funny enough as well. I've not actually been in it, but I understand it's got a historic speed thing because I believe that I don't know. I think it's the reason why I think there's a bit. I'm making a big deal of it because I believe the speed where I passed in Wales, the speed record was broken as well, and it's quite interesting because I didn't know Wales was potentially the area in the UK where the speed record was kind of broken. I sort of found it somewhat more Museum of Land Speed. There we go. And it talks about, and it's so much. It talks about there's a lot of cars on display and everything like that. Now I didn't actually go in it as well, but unfortunately, but we did. I think we did drive past it at one point as well. And there's a lot of historic stuff there. I sort of recommend it if you ever go on holiday in Wales and anything like that as well. But talk about just thinking about that. But yeah, if you talk about speed and everything, it's been a historic weekend of the Goodwood Speed as well. Just seeing so much demonstrations. I think the highlight though was seeing Seb Vettel. Everyone would love to see him. Such a popular guy. And yeah, he did bring a bit of spark to the Goodwood Festival Speed.
I think my favourite part was obviously Sebastian being there, Lando, and also so many of the F1 drivers being there as well. But my favourite had to be the runs of the production cars, seeing all the new models going out. I saw there was a video, McLaren were very busy on their social media. I have to say, some of the photographs they took were absolutely spectacular. The one with the brilliant framing, the brilliant sort of like focusing, if you like. If you're a photography expert, so I've done photography courses as well when I was at college. The whole sharpness of the background was really good. And my favourite one had to be when they recorded this video of Holly Yomas, who is one of McLaren's like head of engineering when they took the Artura hybrid up the hill. Obviously, if you don't know the Artura, this is the first ever McLaren like hybrid production car. Obviously, it's not like the P1, but this is like their first hybrid they've made, like road going car. And honestly, I was watching this video the other day, and I had to save it because it is so cool what they've done. You know, like they took this thing out on the speedway or on the hill climb, and it was so cool. Like honestly, they put this reel on Instagram, and it was really cool. Have a listen to exactly what McLaren done when they filmed the Artura. This was Holly taking it up the hill the other day.
Ready when you are. Ready? Go. Yeah, keep it pinned. Full throttle. Keep going. Hard brake. Good. Bleed out with the brake smoothly. Turn in. A little bit of throttle while turning. A little bit of power now. Confidence, confidence, confidence. Go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Easy. A little bit of power. Trust the grip. Trust the grip. Trust you, Jack. Go, 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 go. Woo! Brake. Off the brake. Turn in. A little bit of power. Off we go. Full power. Woo! Is that right? Yeah.
Thank you there to Jack Barlow as well for helping Holly, assisting Holly up the hill there. Oh wow! I mean that Artura certainly sounds good, doesn't it? V8 engine. Obviously, if you like petrol cars, like myself, being a petrol head, yeah, certainly great event. Also, guys, if you saw the new MG Cyberster as well, that's also going into production. It's going to be a little rival there to the Mazda MX-5. So I'll be very interested to see how that car gets on when it enters production very soon. If you want us to chat about any news regarding cars or anything, please let me know. And I will put that on my YouTube channel on the Chazza Squash section so you'll be able to listen to that. As well, moving on now to press preview. We have got a lot of news stories to talk about on the newspapers. Obviously, if you're out in Europe where the Formula One is this weekend, yes, I know your heat wave has been very hot from what I understand. Record temperatures in Italy. I bet I don't know if the papers have been covering that. We'll certainly address that in a minute. Let's go on to the newspapers now and talk what is coming up. So here we go with the papers. The Eye. Oh, actually, let's go straight up. Oh, the Daily Star goes £100 on the spot fines for school holiday fun sponges. Are they quackers? A very weird headline. It says on here, flying kites, feeding ducks and tree climbing. Okay. Very interesting one on
Not
that.
allowed.
Certainly an interesting dilemma there. The Guardian goes for taxpayer to fund 45% pay rise for royals despite the cost of living crisis as well. The Eye goes, 1 in 6 people will be stuck on NHS waiting lists if doctor strikes continue, warns the UK top minute. Now, the other week, the government issued, I think, a pay rise of, I think, of around 6.57%, which teaching unions accepted, but the doctors and NHS boards decided not to do that, and strike action is on until Saturday. So, bad news for that. The Independent goes, closed hospital, we exposed for treating patients like animals, whistleblowers treated at Berkshire Mental Health Hospital shed tears of joy over immediate closure. Of course, that's where Hugh Edwards has been to seek mental health support following the BBC scandal. Financial Times goes, for Vattenfall halts offshore wind production in a setback for renewable energy plants. Sites cost surge 40%, warns of crisis in the industry. Developers say fixed prices are too low. And the Metro's front page goes for Just Stop Foiled. That's a funny headline there. Eco-activist Kettleby Group, rival group, and also that there, just stopping the oil protest, the Just Stop Oil protesters there. Some guy driving what appears to be a Ferrari 458 by the looks of it, and one can see that is a 458 Spider by the looks of it there, around the protesters. So even luxury cars just about getting through climate protesters on the road. Zach, what do you make to the latest newspaper headlines?
Yeah, I mean, let's go. Let's start with the Daily Star, which appears to have a quackers front page. Are they quackers? And they reference the fact that there's going to be £100 on the spot fines by school holiday fun sponges. I talk about police and all that sort of fun. You can't fly kites in some areas. You can't go around feeding the dark, and you can't go around tree climbing. Now, tree climbing I can understand because it's dangerous and you're probably going to fall off and hit your head. But feeding the ducks, the king's ducks, come on, really? And flying kites. I kind of understand flying kites because if they come down and hit your face, it's not pleasant. But Tom Hill Killjoy is accused of misuse by finding folks for feeding ducks, flying kites, and climbing trees. I mean, yeah, it's a bit it's a bit salty behaviour to find people on the spot for doing that sort of thing. I mean, it's the summer holidays, for goodness sake, and then people are going to be going off the way. And there's nothing wrong with flying a kite, I don't believe, or feeding the duck. There's nothing harm to feeding the duck. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it might be a royal thing, but goodness me, it's just a bit weird that people have been fined on the spot for that. Come on, really? Get over yourself. Yeah, so the piece that the people have gone a bit quackers. And speaking of quackers, The Guardian, taxpayer to fund 45% pay rise for royals despite cost of living crisis. I love King Charles, but please, he does not need a posh pay rise. He received a huge pay rise from the UK taxpayer according to government plans to boost public funding of the monarchy by 45% from 2025. Why 45%? I mean, for God's sake, you barely give, but you moan at the doctors and nurses if you get 35%. You give the King Charles 45%. What a joke! I mean, they're absolutely going royally nuts down there as well. It's revealed because the Family Royal France grants is going to due to increase from 86 million to 125 million. As well. I mean, come on. We shouldn't be paying for that massive pay rise. I mean, yeah, give them a little bit of a pay rise, but not that many. Given the fact they've been moaning at bloody doctors and everything like that as well. Yeah, the doctors are going back on strike again. The teachers, thankfully, are not. 6.5% pay rise accepted. Good to see that's been, good to see that's been, resolved in many ways as well. I'm really pleased to see that. The Eye, 1 in 6 people will be stuck on the NHS waiting lists if doctor strike continues. Health chiefs urge the government and unions to re-enter into negotiation on pay. Estimating 9 million people in England will be on NHS waiting list if doctor strike continues. I just want to obviously tell you about this week. Consultants have actually gone on strike. They're the ones that consult to the doctors and guide them on procedures, and so the consultants go on a strike. Is a bigger one because it means operations get cancelled once again. It's a bigger impact than what people think it is, actually, to be fair. As well. So, but yeah, it's a big problem actually. The strikes in many ways in terms of the backlogs, understandably on their pay rise, but it looks like they're not going to even get pay rise. To be fair, for the unions in terms of the doctors' unions, because actually negotiations are over, and the Rishi Sunak is no longer interested in negotiation. As well. So yeah, I think in that way we're going to see problems with this if there's going to be the fact there's going to be no negotiations. This is going to be a very long couple of months and years, I think, for the NHS in terms of these strikes as well. Hospitals, we are exposed for treating patients like animals. This is an independent investigation that they've done here. Whistleblowers treated at Berkshire Mental Health shed tears of joy of immediate closure. As well, a hospital that has systemic abuse is to close permanently. Private mental health hospital, there we go, that's private hospitals, sums it up, has scrap plans to reopen scandal hit Tampon Manor with immediate effect. Staff shed tears at the joy of the news. Follows mounting pressure on the company after the newspaper published about allegation involving widespread abuse made by more than 50 patients. Multiple whistleblowers, staff levels so low that patients have been seriously harmed. I think this is vindication for the victims who have gone through hell and been treated poorly by this trust. And it's glad to see that they're never going to open up again. I mean, even its own staff don't want to open up again. I think that sums up how's it filled. And we've got 2 more papers to deal with here as well. The Financial Times, in Vattenfall halts offshore wind project and setback for renewable energy plans. This is really bad news, actually, because sites costs surge 40%, warning the crisis industry developers say fixed price too low. UK efforts to boost renewable energy have suffered a significant setback of the country's biggest offshore wind farm project was halted due to surging costs. 40% rise in the cost, with a total investment of 10 to 11 billion pounds as well. This is a severe blowback for the green industry in the UK. This is a way to go green. Okay, offshore wind, onshore wind. Onshore wind is shockingly banned still. I don't get why. It needs to be overturned. This onshore wind ban needs to be overturned. Renewable energy, wind farms, also important to powering the green agenda for the UK. And stuff like this that gets stopped is really bad, and hence hands power to the likes of Putin and the Saudi Arabians in many ways as well, which is not what I want to see absolutely as well. So shame to see that one done. And the Metro, the last headline, probably the best headline of all, just stop foiled. Just stop poor activists causing traffic chaos, finally halted by counter protesters surrounding them with a human chain. They went with the slogan, "Just stop pissing everyone off." As well. Followed the demo Elephant Castle in London as well. They kettled boiled oil groups off the road onto the pavement in bizarre scenes. Stop all mentioned. We know disruption is comfortable, it's necessary. I mean, fair play to these people. They've got good tactics. They've got interesting tactics, and actually, they were a load of fun. To be fair, as well, the battle of the protests. I like to see more of this because actually, it's quite funny. I mean, whether you agree with the message or not, I think these methods are really interesting. And it's quite hilarious to watch, really. So yeah, that is the papers for the Metro, and that is the papers for tomorrow.
Well, actually, speaking of that,
two more
papers. Yes, actually, we have 3 more because the Daily Telegraph's gone. With bank boss says sorry to Nigel Farage accounts. The NatWest chief executive apologises for deeply inappropriate dossier comments. Okay, so that dossier that was sent out has now apologised as well. The Mirror goes for Jeffrey Epstein. Andrews Epstein lies on Newsnight. They're saying emails say the pair had swapped dinner and swapped messages on the contrary to his TV. And Daily Mail goes, apology of all sorts from courts, but silence from the BBC. Nigel Farage saying that about his bank account being shut down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Mail and the Telegraph, unsurprisingly, they pretty much said as well. I mean, look, you know, the BBC reported that courts had the right, Coutts had the right to do it, and you know, Daily Mail slamming on that. Apologies of sorts from Coutts. Obviously, leaning on the fact that Nigel Farage lost his bank account. They've had to apologise for it. You know, I think it. Yeah, I think in many ways as well. It's. I'm glad the apology's been made, but I think the council needs to do a bit more action to fairly state Nigel Farage's account. And this, I mean, Prince Andrew never fails to get away from the news when he's an idiot, doesn't he? Andrew Epstein's lies on Newsnight. So it turns out court documents revealed the fact that he was visiting Jeffrey Epstein whilst he was under health arrest. As well, quite interesting, quite shocking, really. This is according to new court documents. Paper contradicts the Duke's Newsnight claims to Emily Matis. They only saw the tycoon in December 2010 after his sentence ended. In email sent on June 14th that year, Epstein told a bunker, "Andrew's just sat next to me at dinner." Whew. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, Prince Andrew. No wonder why you're not a working member of the royal family anymore. And the Daily Express have just released their headline away. Furious over plans to axe pension tax break. Treasury plans to scrap a tax break on pensions are a ticking time bomb for families on modest incomes. The tens of thousands of people a year face losing out on the proposed exemption that benefits who inherit untouched pension pots. That's an interesting one. I've not seen that one, to be fair, but I mean, rich pensioners should be given tax increases, to be honest, because they get the most wealthiest things in the world. This sounds like this targets poor pensioners, which, if that's the case, is not good at all. But failing that, I don't believe there's anything else. No, that's the papers for the 21st of July, Charlie.
That's the papers for July, but there's also one more bonus news story I want to mention. This morning have announced, or ITV have confirmed, that Josie Gibson will star in I'm a Celebrity 2023. That's the first signing I've heard already. for the new series.
Blimey, Josie Gibson. Good signing if that is true. As well. I have to say, Josie Gibson is quite a formidable character and a good presenter this morning. As well, could be Holly's successor. In the future, who knows? I mean, but yeah, good signing if that is correct.
Yeah. It may look on I'm a Celeb this year. It's saying that it hasn't officially been confirmed, but it is saying that there are reports that she has signed for I'm a Celebrity. We'll let you know, guys, once the lineup is fully complete nearer the time, who will be starring on that show. That's going to take place during the later times of 2023, probably in the autumn, winter of that year as well. Thank you so much for listening, though. That is it for the Tonight Show podcast with me, Charlie, and my co-host, Zach. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the show. And in the meantime, hope you enjoy your summer holidays as well, particularly if you're breaking up from school or college at the end of this. Thanks so much for listening. Take care and good night.